Hey everyone, my name is Michael Chime. I'm the CEO of Prepared, and I get the question all the time, why work in public safety? Because I was a total outsider. I was an undergraduate student at Yale, so I always get that question, and my answer surprises people. I grew up in a town right outside of where there was an active shooter event in 2012. 2012, I was 13 years old, and I saw how that impacted a very small blue-collar town. And it was certainly the catalyst for me. I went to college thinking about those types of problems and thinking, how could we do better? And it led me to meet with 911 centers. And so zooming out for a second, when I was going into the 911 center for the very first time, I remember having this clearly now naive assumption that what I was about to see was going to be the best technology in the world. And it would make sense, right? They're taking mission critical calls. When you call 911, you think, okay, it must be like military classified stuff. But the more that I think about it, I don't think the assumption was off. It is true that when you call 911, that person is calling in potentially their worst moment. And the person on the other side of that call, the hardworking public servants, call takers, dispatchers, supervisors, are handling one of the worst moments of someone's life. So it should be true that the best technology sits in those centers. Yet, it doesn't, right? Those folks are often tasked with one of the most difficult jobs ever and have to do so with decade-old tools. I'd love that to change. And I think that right now, the world is at an inflection point, that technology is innovating faster than it ever has, and that it would be such a shame if that innovation, that speed, neglected those who I think need it most. And that's why we built Prepared, right? We think that new technologies like AI could really help solve some of the challenges that 911 centers are facing. 911 centers nationally, for the last decade, have seen rising call volumes. 911 centers are taking more calls than they ever have. Yet, side by side that, staffing levels are going down. It is harder than ever to hire a dispatcher. And so, not a good trend, right? We have more emergencies than ever that we have to handle with less folks. And then you insert something like AI, right? AI is unique and different in that it can do jobs that were not possible a decade ago. And I really believe it could fill in a lot of these gaps. And so how do we apply it, right? Again, very important that it's done thoughtfully. This is mission critical work, and we can't just throw it in to any emergency and see how it goes. I think we have to have very, very thoughtful frameworks on how we do it. And so how we think about it is this, is that technology, and specifically AI, makes sense in really two categories. First category is the set of jobs that humans really shouldn't do, right? That are mundane and burden them and pull them back from what they really can focus on. I think a 911 caller or call taker should really be focused on the human that's in that moment and how can they give them the best aid. So how can we take work off their plates? And then the second thing is technology has always done a great job of filling in limitations, doing things that we alone can't do. I give this silly example of, I can't run 60 miles an hour, so I use a car. And that technology allows me to go faster than I ever could alone. I think AI could do the same thing. Something like language translation, which we'll talk about in a minute. No person I've ever met speaks 30 languages, right? So technology can come in and fill in gaps that we can't do alone. And we think that by doing that, understanding problems deeply and solving them through technology, that we might be able to improve the world. And so I'll show you some of the work we've been up to. I think it's a not widely known fact that there's 250 million 911 calls that go into our centers a year, yet a huge percentage of those calls are actually non-emergent. They're things like noise complaints, parking tickets, etc. I believe this is an opportunity where we are not utilizing fully the critical resource that is the human, right? That is really, really great at giving an empathetic ear to someone in their worst moment, but should they be bogged down by that noise complaint, by that parking ticket? It's a big portion of the call volume. We think that's a huge opportunity for technology to jump in. And so I'll show you how we would go about doing that. What you're about to see here is, commonly with a lot of centers, the non-emergency traffic is diverted to a 10-digit line or something like a 311. And again, today, that is a human resource that's answering that call, that's being bogged down by it. Sometimes it's nobody answering it at all. We have hold times, right? In some large cities, you'll see upwards of 40-minute hold times on non-emergency. Again, I think we can do much better. And so in a prepared world, we have an AI assistant that is empathetic, that can listen, and that can handle those calls so that we can have humans focused on the emergency situations and also reduce hold times to 0. So this is how it would work. We're going to make a call.
Hey, Michael, I'm Prepared's AI non-emergency assistant. I was programmed to specifically offload burden for 911 centers by handling incidents like noise complaints or parking tickets. How can I assist you today?
My neighbor's having a really noisy party. Can you help with that?
I can help with that. To clarify, is the party currently happening?
It sounds like it is, yes.
Okay, so the party is happening now. What is the address where the party is taking place?
It's 123 Broadway in New York City.
Okay, that's 123 Broadway in New York City. Do you know the zip code for that location?
Yeah, it's 11101.
Okay, so the address is 123 Broadway, New York City, zip code 11101. Do I have that correct?
You got it right.
Okay, I have logged the noise complaint at 123 Broadway in New York City. What is your name and phone number?
It's Michael Chime, 440-622.
Okay, that's Michael Chime. And your phone number is 440-622. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, Michael. And how long have you heard the noise?
It's the last couple minutes. Just started.
Do you know what direction in relation to your home the noise is coming from?
I think north.
How often has this happened?
It just started.
Okay, Michael Chime, phone number 440-622, is reporting a noise complaint about a party at 123 Broadway, New York City, New York, 11101. The noise is coming from across the street and sounds like it's to the north. The noise started a couple minutes ago, and this is the first time it has happened. Is that correct?
That's all right.
Okay, Michael, I've logged the noise complaint. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
Nope, thank you so much.
Thank you for your call. Have a nice day.
You too. See, he's so nice. And so why does that matter, what we just saw? A number of reasons. One is that is a huge part of our traffic, right? Non-emergency calls, just like that, for a noise complaint or a parking ticket or a pothole, right? And it bogs down resources. But the second thing is that now we can actually provide better service. When you have this triage view, right, hold times now go to 0. You can have a singular person, someone just watching the triage, and now they could manage in real time hundreds of calls, 30 calls, right? So now hold times are 0, right? I can go in and instantly review any of those calls and say no action needed. Or I could follow up. I could send out a message, right? I could choose to have the AI send that message for them or punch in a call for service into CAD, right? You can set all of this up. And again, one person is able to manage all of the traffic that's coming through the non-emergency line. And it's very, very easy to set up. So you saw that it addressed me. It said, hey, Michael, how are you? I set that up a few minutes ago, right before we got on the stage here. I said, tell it to say, hey, Michael, because I wanted it to be nice to me. And it did. It told me it was Prepared's non-emergency assistant and that it was programmed for certain situations. And I could change that now. And the address or the introduction would update instantly. I also can go in and edit the intents. I think this is a very, very important piece. I think there's probably somebody listening who said, okay, that bot, that's been around forever. I've been talking to those, and every single time I just hit 0. I go to the operator. The reason that happened, and I think that will still happen in the future, is primarily because they weren't so easy to talk to. Now you're able to give very little guidance to the Prepared assistant and just say, hey, what is the intent? What is the scenario that I'm facing? Something like medical or fire. And then I give a basic description of what that is, right? Medical call is something that it's clear the caller is experiencing something that would put them in harm's way. And in this situation, the action that the agent would take is transfer the call to 911 or the number that they've set up. You're able to actually allow it to go and take the action, whether that's putting it in as a call for service, that is transferring to another phone number, that's sending out a text to the caller, letting them know there's a link where they can track their report. All of that's instantly accessible to you, and you can have it set up in a few minutes. But when emergency situations happen, you face that call, think of us as a co-pilot, as an assistant, sitting next to you, making sure you catch every piece of critical information and that it fills in the gaps. It helps you better handle that situation. The first thing that we do is we give you really precise location, right? So for a lot of those call takers that are listening, you know that's one of the critical or the most important part of any call. I have to know where you're at, right? And so we bring together every location feed at your fingertips. So instant GPS device location like ELS or EED, Annie location. And when you have something like a transcript, you can bring all of those data sources together with what we call spoken location. Spoken location is taking into account not only, again, the Annie and the ELS and EED location, but also what the caller says, right? We get this transcript of what's happening in the call, and you can see if they said they're near a Wendy's, right? And triangulate the most precise location based on all of those feeds at once. And so now we sit as an assistant sitting next to you, trying to make sure that you don't miss a single key detail. And so let's walk through a Vietnamese call, right? Where you're in that situation where you'd have to bring in an interpreter to handle what's going on. With Prepared, you can instantly know what's happening.
Of your emergency?
Alo, xin chào, tôi chào cảnh sát. Có một chiếc xe đang bắn ở đây. Người đang bắn là trong chùm xe.
Okay, sir. I see you're speaking Vietnamese. Do you understand English?
Tôi hiểu, nhưng tôi không nói tốt. Tôi xin lỗi, tôi đang lo lắng.
That's okay. Just keep speaking Vietnamese. What's your address?
Tôi đang ở đường Green và đường Imperial Valley ở Greenpoint.
Okay, is anybody hurt?
Tôi đã chụp hình chiếc xe rồi.
Okay, I'll let this keep running in the background, but you can see that a number of things, important things happen. One is without the need of pulling in a third-party interpreter, we instantly knew what was going on. I'll tell you a story of how a center was using this. We had a large center with high call volume that a call came in and it was in Mandarin, and they had just deployed Prepared. And so they're getting used to it. They're just starting to train on it. And so they hit the button for their third-party interpreter. And while they're waiting, they realized up on Prepared's transcript that the father was saying, my daughter was shot. My daughter was shot. And they go, okay, I can dispatch that. So they send EMS, they send law enforcement. And by the time those responders got on scene, the interpreter had just gotten on the line and they were able to save the girl. And so instantly now we have this information. We can make decisions off of this and we aren't left helpless, not knowing what's going on. But side by side that, not only are we able to translate it, we create an instant summary of that call. Again, think of us as an assistant sitting on your shoulder, making sure every key detail is processed and gathered, right? And so this often becomes the CAD entry. You have call takers that are able to now fully focus on that caller, and we ensure that every single key detail is captured. You can take parts of this, pieces of this, copy it into CAD. And so with summaries, you're now able to condense down all of the key information into one view and share that out to responders in the field so they have all the situational awareness that they need to handle that emergency. We've been so excited to see the adoption of this tool. Just this year alone, Prepare will process almost 20 million calls, sitting side by side 911 call takers, helping them process key moments like this. But one of the number one things that we did last year was learn. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to expand this feature set to more places within the call flow to continue to be that assistant. You know, I was really fortunate that centers would let me in and sit next to their call takers, sit next to their dispatchers to try to deeply understand the problems. And I remember one day talking to a dispatcher and he's like, you know, I wish I was a call taker. And I was like, why? Right? That sounds really hard. You got to talk to callers. And again, their worst moments. And he goes, well, at least it's one-to-one. And I was like, one-to-one? What do you mean? And he goes, it would be just me and the caller. For me as a dispatcher, I have 10 channels that I have to monitor all at once. And I only have 2 ears. So I have 2 ears, but 10 channels. How does that work? There's no way that I could ever listen to every single channel at once. And so what does that mean? Someone out in the field could say something like Mayday, or I need help. And if it's on a channel that's not being monitored, we could miss that and not get that person that help that's in a burning building who's crying out saying, please send somebody to help me. With transcription, you can't. Every single channel can be monitored simultaneously. AI in the background, not only transcribing those channels, but looking for keywords like Mayday, right? And we set these AI keywords up so that no Mayday ever gets missed. Another example of something that we learned last year was how supervisors, directors were utilizing the tool. I remember sitting next to one of our large city directors, and he was monitoring the transcription and he created keywords for CPR calls. And I was like, wait, why are you watching CPR? And he said, I'm trying to do QA. I'm trying to chip in we want to understand how we're doing relative to our protocols. And I said, how are you doing QA today? And he walked me through their process. He said, okay, we go into our logger, we listen to those calls, we got a piece of pen and paper, and we go through and we check the boxes. Did we do this? Did we verify the location? Did we verify the nature of the incident? And we go by hand, and he's like, and Mike, we get to 2% of calls a year. Very excited about that outcome. And I remember saying, can you please give us the form? Because with AI, you could overnight, instantly, get to 100% of calls, quality assured. Every single call being reviewed. And not only could you review every single call, you could give feedback on how the call taker did in that moment or within 24 hours once you reviewed it. So not only are we going through and we can say every single call in our city is run against its protocols, we can get better that day, as opposed to 6 months. And so this is how we do that. You have a dashboard that you go into, and every single call is scored. Not only can I see a bird's eye view of that score, I can click in and give instant feedback. Not only can I see my protocol, and all of this is customized. Any center can decide what are the right things to check, and we'll go through and check them. But I can see that protocol against the call side by side. So I can see, did they verify the location, incident nature, caller phone number, right? And where we gave them a green check, you can go in and see why the AI said that was the right score. Or if they said they didn't do it, again, you can see exactly why the AI said they missed it. And the human can go in, now focus on just the important details and say if they agree. So you still have the human element. You're still saying, okay, AI is going through everything. I'm going to hunt through and see if I agree. But once we form an opinion and say yes, I can go through, add a comment, and submit that feedback. And now that day, the call taker that took that call or the trainee that's just getting on the floor, only been there a few weeks, can get that coaching, can get that feedback. We don't have to wait 6 months till there's a real problem before they get it. They can get it instantly. Everything that I've shown is already deployed in centers. And we've been so excited about the outcomes that centers have been able to drive. Instantly now, they're reaching 100% quality assurance. Every single call is getting QA'd. But not only that, the turnaround time from problem to feedback to solution can happen in a day, not 6 months. And while I'm really excited about these outcomes, I think it's just the beginning. I've had the, again, good fortune to sit next to directors and learn from them as they've gone about the process of implementing our tools. And I tend to ask a provocative question. I'll say, hey, why do we want QA in the first place? What's the end goal? And they'll say, well, Mike, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why should we QA? And I'll be like, well, really, what is the point of quality assurance? And they'll say, well, we're trying to get to a point where on the call taker says the right thing, that they collect the right information. And our hope is that if we find issues, we train on those issues, that next time they'll be better. My question is, what if we could do that on every call today? That we didn't have to go through the process of finding issues, training on issues, in the hope that tomorrow we're going to remember every single bespoke protocol. I think we can get to that outcome really, really soon with something we call live guidance. So call taker takes a call, and not only do we have the protocols checking in the background, while they're on that call today, those protocols display. And so me, as a call taker, I'm looking at this, I see the transcript, and again, I have an assistant on my shoulder that's watching and seeing, am I aligning with these? And if I'm not, if I've missed something, nudges me and says, hey, while you're still on the call, let's get that callback number. Let's get and confirm the incident's location, right? And so now I think we're not only able to go through and quality assure 100% of calls, we can potentially get to the true outcome of QA, which is while we're on the call, while we're in that moment, while the caller is going through that situation, we don't miss a detail. We ask the right question. We gather all the key information, not only for the caller, but for that responder going unseen. I think there's a future where every single time a call comes in, we're exactly aligned with protocol and that AI can help. I think that in an AI future, it's really, really important that tools integrate. That's always been important to 911. How can we consolidate screens? How can we have less tools? How can we have a single operating system that brings all of our things together? I think in an AI future, it's going to be critical because AI is only as good as the data you give it. And if you bring all of these tools together, non-emergency, transcription, on the radio and on the call, QA and protocols, when you bring it all together, you can build features that we like to call internally 1 + 1 = 3, where you have all this information working together to answer any question that you'd like to ask it. And so we're excited about new launches like our AI search. We're going to go in and ask Prepared which incident types scored lower than 70% in the last month. And it'll look at all of your information. Again, all of your calls, all of your radio information. Look at your protocols and say, in the last month, we've had 70% here or 68 here. Not only will it give you that data, it'll suggest follow-up questions that you might like to ask it. And it'll take all of this information and allow you to create reports and dashboards where all of your information is at your fingertips. At any moment, you can see what's happening in your center real time. Things like call volumes, things like call duration. How are we doing on protocol? And much, much more. I think that despite our ideas, we have a ton of ideas on how this might get used. I know for a fact that our centers are going to teach us the best ways that this is going to be utilized, and I'm so excited to launch it. And as all of you know, technology is moving really, really fast. And a lot of these advancements are happening super rapidly in the last few months. What's been exciting to us is we've already been able to see these outcomes that we're discussing live in centers across the country. And to really understand how we're going to deploy brand new technology, you have to deeply understand how to do it, the challenges that it solves. And I think the only way to do that is have deep discussions about those challenges. And you're going to see a panel that we've curated of 911 experts around these challenges and how they're going about solving them. And we couldn't be more excited to bring this to the world.